Thank you, Steph, for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here with everyone. I can't believe there's people from all over, and some folks were so willing to get up early. So I hope I can do this topic justice and answer some questions at the end. I am one person with one perspective, and I welcome all feedback. And everyone comes here with a lot of thoughts and a lot of experience. So I really am excited to learn from you guys as well. So, just to give you a little background about myself, my name is Nikki, and I've been working in the wildlife care field my entire career since college. I started at a small nature museum in Tallahassee, Florida, and I've worked in zoos, wildlife care centers, museums in Florida, North Carolina, California, and now here in Oregon. I'm currently at the Oregon Zoo. So, that's just a little bit of background about me. Most of my time spent has been in the ambassador field. So, working with native animals to the North America as well as exotics. And I really do like to work with native species. I think it's really fun, and I hope everyone here has had a chance to do something like that or is looking forward to doing that someday. And again, I know everyone here comes from many perspectives and either in a big organization, small, maybe we have some home rehabbers here. So I'm hoping to be fairly broad on this topic and kind of catch everyone where we're at. And again, at the end, I would love feedback and thoughts. So I'll get started here. So the talk is called When the Best Choices Change, Assessing the Future of Animal Ambassador Programs. Essentially, what that means is I think that in order to be a successful ambassador program, we should always be reflective and be willing to audit ourselves continuously, regularly, and think critically about what we're doing, why are we here, and what is the best choice for the animal in our care or animals. So we're going to kind of go through all of these sorts of change thoughts and things like that. So my first topic, I got to move myself so I can actually read what I'm doing. One moment. So today's goals. Today, I'd love to define methods to evaluate success through several lenses. So we're going to look at this through a couple different perspectives, help identify indicators that may need to change in a program. So what is it that is a tension point in your program, and what is indicating that it needs to change? Identify the types of change and why they may be pursued. So we might not need to phase out an ambassador program completely, but maybe we need to rework something. And this is just, things to get us thinking about that. I know when I started in ambassadors and I was really young, I didn't even think as critically as I should have. So I learned a lot through working and just being really observant. So what are some of those indicators and what kind of change can we do? And then brainstorm some factors involved in phasing out an ambassador program if that's the choice that you and your team think is the right thing. Again, doesn't have to be, but some people have decided there's things that have changed and maybe it's not the right spot for their ambassadors anymore. Um, okay, oopsie daisy. Okay, so defining success and evaluating success. Again, this is an ongoing thing that I think as responsible caretakers we should be doing all the time. So we're living in a really dynamic field right now. Standards are increasing, our education's increasing. There's a lot of things we need to think about. So is our organization's mission still relevant? And is our program successful in supporting that? Is the most important thing to me personally is the animal welfare where it needs to be, that we want it to be. Is it exceeding standards? Is it meeting standards? Does it need work? What resources do we have as an organization or an individual? That's not just dollars, that's other resources, that's our time, that's facilities, it's all sorts of things. And then the community impact. So if we're doing programming, are we reaching the community in the ways that we want to? Is it effective? How do we evaluate that? I'm not necessarily the end all be all of community impact. There's a lot of ways you can assess that, both really formal and then through things like surveys. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so for organization's mission, essentially, does our program align with the institutional goals, strategic priorities, and our educational objectives? So, is our program supporting that? Has our mission changed? Are we a rehab facility and we're talking about wild and we have animals in care under human care and we're sort of questioning, is that the right thing? And then is the program and the mission in alignment with our current animal welfare standards? And that's something that, again, I like to think about often and to really look at as often as I can. Think about that every single day that I'm interacting with an animal in my care. Um, Animal welfare. This is the one I want to really get in on. I know a lot of you guys are, I'm getting to my notes too, sorry. A lot of us here are rehabbers, so animal welfare is what we do. Um, AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, says that animal welfare and conservation comes before revenue. And that's something I truly believe. I think the animal's welfare should be above all else. And there's ways that we can evaluate welfare. Generally, we know about the five freedoms of animal welfare, which is, I'll just read them for us all. The freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, or disease, freedom to express normal behavior, and freedom from fear and distress. So that's kind of listed out here in a different way through nutrition, environment, physical health, behavior, and mental health. So when we're looking at an animal having freedom of hunger and thirst, is the nutrition adequate? Is it the right thing that that animal should be eating? And is that animal able to engage in normal feeding behaviors when it's being fed? So if, you have an animal that can't eat properly, is that welfare? And that can change over an animal's lifetime too. So those are some of those other sorts of assessments we need to look at as an individual and as a species. Um, Environment. Is the animal's environment adequate? Is the mew it's in right? Are there perching options correct? Is it a big enough space? Is that animal able to elicit all of its natural behaviors? Can it stretch its wings? If it's a snake, can it stretch all the way out? Does it have that opportunity to do that? And if it doesn't, do we have the funding, the resources, the gumption to redesign something for that animal if it is in our priority to keep that animal? What are we doing to always improve? And then physical health, that's one that a lot of folks have been doing a lot of research on recently, and we're really increasing our standards for that as an entire scientific viewpoint. So even when I started in animal care, I would work with animals, owls with wing amputations, and you know, their balance isn't great, and it was presented to me this is very normal. Well, we're learning that that's not necessarily welfare for an animal. Kit Lacey, Cascade Raptor Center did a really great study I highly recommend everyone read about. And they spent a lot of time looking at animals in their care, both ambassadors, and it's a wildlife hospital. So they looked at animals that had been euthanized as patients. And they researched, what are these injuries and can this animal, especially birds, actually have a full life after an injury? And certain injuries were acceptable, some are not. And they've pretty much found through their research with pathologists and their veterinarian that there are some animals that are not suitable to be in an ambassador program. And a lot of legacy programs still have some of these animals in their care. So that's something that if you think to your animals and you're like, I got this owl with this injury, is it exhibiting pain? Is it doing this preservation reflex and we can't even see it? But what is welfare for this animal if it's been injured and it has a chronic injury? And how are we addressing it to make sure it's not in pain if we are planning to keep it? So some animals that they said that are not necessarily suitable to be ambassadors any longer could be animals with injuries near joints, most amputations, which, for me, I'd worked with a lot of amputated animals. So that was a hard one to think about that I've cared for animals that may have been in pain. And what do we do in the future? Injuries that result in undue stress on joints by changing their articulation. So there is an injury near a joint and maybe that animal can't move its joint properly anymore. And is there some buildup happening there? I'm not a scientist on this, but I've researched a little bit about it, and it's interesting to learn about this. Disabilities that decrease confidence. So if an animal has a disability and it can't ambulate around its environment appropriately, then it's losing confidence. It may exhibit fear, and is that again welfare? And then any condition that may result in or develop in ongoing pain and or fear. So this is where our veterinarians are really helpful. We need to lean on our partners and our staff that know better than we do about certain things because again, I'm not a veterinarian, but I know that my veterinarian will give me an honest opinion if we're looking to select an ambassador. If we're thinking we're going to select an ambassador, what are all these criteria?